Hello and welcome to Children's Church. We've been going through different stories of the Bible where we find, kids are mentioned. And I was reading this story this week and I thought, that would be perfect for Children's Church. See, in this story, Jesus and his disciples have just been across the Sea of Galilee. They've had a wonderful, miraculous time over there. And they've come back to the Israelite side, if you will, of the Sea of Galilee, because they've been over in the land of the Gentiles, what's called the Decapolis. Anyhow, they came back and they had landed on the shore and a great crowd of people gathered around because they all wanted to see Jesus and hear what he would have to say. And this one man came pushing up to the front and just crying out for Jesus' attention. Now his name was, we would pronounce it Jairus, but I don't really think they pronounced the J's back then, so it'd be like Jairus or something like that. Anyhow, he was a leader of the synagogue in the town, which is kind of like the church, if you will. And he was just really tore up. I mean, he was crying out for Jesus' attention because his daughter was very sick. His daughter was 12 years old, and she was at home, and, everybody said she was going to die. She was not getting any better. She was just going downhill real fast. And his last hope was to get Jesus to come and heal his daughter. And so he came and he was just begging, crying out, Jesus, please come to my house, heal my daughter. If you just touch her, she'll be made whole. And so Jesus agreed he would go with him. But the crowd was so huge and everyone was just massing to get close to Jesus. They just wanted to see him, to touch him, to say something to him, to hear him say anything. And so he was just getting pressed on every side. It was kind of like, it's like if everyone's trying to leave an event all at once and everyone's just kind of crushing and you're getting pushed up against your mom or dad or whoever you were there with. That's what it was like for Jesus. He was just getting pushed on by every side. And they're trying to go towards Jairus' house, and all of a sudden Jesus stops everybody and goes, whoa, hold on. Somebody touched me. Now, one of Jesus' disciples, Peter, he's pretty literal. He goes, what do you mean someone touched you? He goes, you got a crowd pressing in on every side of it. We're all touching you. What do you mean someone touched me? Let's go. And Jairus is like, come on, can we please get going? And Jesus said, no, wait. Someone touched me. I know because I felt power go out from me. Who touched me? And he looked around at all the crowd of people. And this one woman stepped forward. She was really embarrassed. And she said, I'm sorry. I touched just the edge of your garment. See, she had been sick. She had a problem with her body. She had been bleeding and it wouldn't heal. It had been going on for so long. It literally been going on for 12 years. The same year that Jairus' daughter was born, this woman's problem started. And for 12 years, she had been bleeding and it just wouldn't heal. And when you were bleeding back then, you were considered unclean. No one would touch you. You couldn't get married. You couldn't do anything. And she had spent all of her money on doctors trying to get better. And they didn't do a thing. Everything she had been spending the last 12 years trying to get better, and she couldn't. And when she heard that Jesus was coming into town, she said, if I could just even touch the edge of his garment, I would be healed. And she did. She touched just the edge of his garment as he was going past her, and she was healed. Jesus was right. Power had gone out. And Jesus looked at her and said, woman, your faith has healed you. You're healed. Go your way in peace. And she left. And Jairus is going, can we please, my house, my daughter, please. And then he saw something he didn't want to see. See, in the edge of the crowd, a couple of his servants or friends said to Jairus, don't bother him anymore. Your daughter's dead. You failed. If only he'd gotten Jesus to move a little faster, just maybe. But Jesus looked at Jairus and said, no, have faith. Hang in there. Believe. Your daughter will be healed. So Jairus was like, okay, let's see. By the time they got to Jairus' house, though, it was obvious his daughter was dead. I mean, people were around weeping and wailing. The professional mourners were there, and they used to make a big scene. And the more important you were, the more they would wail and mourn and play horrible-sounding instruments. They would intentionally play them just off-sounding, just to let everyone know how tore up everybody was. And they're just carrying on in this big circus of emotion. Now, Jesus just looks at the mourners and said, "Why are you making this ruckus? The girl's not dead, she's just asleep." They go from wailing and mourning and playing instruments to laughing at him. They're like, "Ah, ha, ha, what a knucklehead, she's dead, we've seen him." But Jesus wasn't going to tolerate any of this. He cast them out. "Get out of here," he said. And all of a sudden, they decided they needed someplace else to be now, and they left. And Jesus only allowed Peter, James, and John, and Jairus and his wife in. And they went in and they saw his daughter laid out on the bed. She was definitely very dead. She had been prepared for burial. And Jesus looked at her and went over and took her hand, looks right at her and says, "Little girl, get up." And she did. She just got right up and started walking around. And Jairus and his wife are in shock. They didn't know what to do. And Jesus said, "Can you give her something to eat?" Yeah, right. We'll get her some food right away. And then Jesus told them something very difficult. He said, "Don't tell anyone about this. Just take her to the priest and offer the sacrifice that Moses says you should." You know, for someone who's been unclean. How do you not tell someone? How do you keep that to yourself? How do you keep something like that a secret? That your daughter was dead and now she's alive. And that's the end of this week's story. Okay, go back and listen to it one more time, and then we're going to ask some questions. Are you ready? Okay. Question number 1. What did you like about this story? What pleased you? Question number 2 asks, what did you not like about this story? What displeased you? Question number 3. What does this story tell us about people? What people are like? Question number 4 asks, what does this story tell us about God? What God is like, the nature of God? Question number 5 asks, what should I do differently because of this story? And now remember, you have to answer this one. I should something. And last but not least, question number 6, who should I tell this story to? Now, it has to be a person this time, not a pet or a toy. I've heard some of those answers. And it can't be someone who is just listening to the story with you. Okay, so we're going to have to dig a little bit deeper this week. Who should I tell this story to? I look forward to seeing your answers down in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of Children's Church.